Hey there, everybody. Welcome again to The Great Retention with Camber Parker, sponsored by the YoProKnow. I'm Camber, your young professional expert and founder of the YoProKnow, where we bring you the answers you need to know about how to hire and retain the best talent, starting with the young professionals you work with. There are so many young professional fish in the sea, as I like to call it, but how do you catch them? And what do you do once you reel them in? That's where we come in. Today, I am so excited to have Nalisha Henry join us, Vice President of Community Impact at the United Way of Greenville County, joining us from Greenville, South Carolina. I met Nalisha when she chaired a mentoring program I was part of at the start of my young professional career. She ended up passing the reins over to me at some point, and we've stayed connected in the Greenville community ever since. She has made her mark on United Way, the Greenville Chamber, and many others, and has been incredibly involved in the nonprofit scene for the majority of her young professional career. I asked her to join me today because we all know one thing, that young professionals want to make a difference and an impact. I could think of no one else better than Nalisha to do just that. So Nalisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome, Camber, and so happy to be here.
Thank you. We're thrilled to have you. So we're going to do a quick lightning round, okay? So in a few sentences, try to describe to us a little bit more about your background, so personal, professional. I know that's hard to keep concise, and it's very important, but we've got a lot to cover today.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm a Greenville native, born and raised in this community. I am an auntie. I'm a doting auntie of a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old niece, 10-year-old nephew, and 2-year-old nephew, where I spend a lot of my time.
Yeah.
I am an eternal optimist. Mm-hmm. I think as I look at and ingrain myself in community, and look at community issues and the challenges of those, just being extremely hopeful and optimistic that better is possible. I am a people lover, and I think that's manifested itself in different ways. My academic background is in both sociology and psychology, and understanding how people tick, what makes us all unique, what is, how we are all bring value in our own ways. I just deeply appreciate. And I'm a learner, right? And I think that has been critical in my own professional career, especially as a young professional, right? Of taking time and making space to consistently learn has been really helpful too.
Well, thank you. That was a very concise answer. And I love when people start by talking about who they are first personally, right?
Yeah,
because I think young professionals,
humans,
we're all humans. We have other interests, right, than being in an office all day long. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I know you were a young professional yourself still. So can you share a memorable experience working with other young professionals, or if you want to take the time just to kind of talk about some traits that are common when working with young professionals, just set the stage for what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, happy to. I think my most transformative experience as a young professional was very early in my career. I think right out of college, I wanted to start to think differently around how I wanted to engage in the community, yes, professionally, but also personally. And one of the things that I did early on was say, gosh, what does serving in a leadership capacity in the community look like? And my first venture into that was serving on the YWCA's junior board of directors for the local YWCA at the time. And one of the things that I deeply appreciated about that was to be around a group of young professional women. I think we were in that range of 21 to maybe 30 at the time, who really were like-minded, who wanted to do the same thing when we talk about the issues that the YWCA is tackling, eliminating racism and empowering women, right? So finding something that spoke to me personally, and then wondering how I could build or add leadership capacity to that. The extreme benefit of that, right, of being such a transformative experience for me was that I was also able to connect with amazing women who were extremely like-minded and also wanted to better their community. And were coming from a variety of different professional spaces, right? So nonprofit sector, business sector, higher education, and understanding that was, yes, a leadership development opportunity for us, but also this phenomenal personal development. And to know that we had shared interests, But also we had each other's back and we had each other's, we're in each other's corner, rooting each other on as we were, growing in our own professional careers. So I think that was probably the most transformative experience for me. And as the YWCA sunset, one of the things we said was like, gosh, this is so important. We need to continue this, right? And so we kind of pulled it up by our bootstraps and said, 4 or 5 of us in a room saying, how do we continue this? Because there's a huge gap in this community around how young professional women develop, especially a variety of diverse backgrounds, right? And so that led us to start Lead Her Greenville, which was intended to really provide that space for young professional women to grow both personally and professionally in this community. So I think that was definitely the most transformative experience for me as a young professional.
I wish I had the opportunity to be a part of it, but I remember hearing about it. And I think that, talking about just personal and professional growth and development ties very nicely into the topic for today, which is, of course, community impact, because that's a part of this personal and professional growth for young professionals. So obviously, we are going to talk about community impact today and why that's so important to young professionals. But what does making an impact in your community mean to you? And what impact has it played on your own life, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And one of the quotes that I keep in my office is a quote by Wilfred Peterson. And it says, walk with the dreamers, believers, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the successful people with their heads in the clouds and their feet on the ground. Let their spirit ignite a fire to leave this world better than you found it. So I keep that in my office. I look at it every single day. And that helps me understand that, yes, I can have an impact and I can engage in the community on my own, whether that's professionally or personally. But gosh, when I connect with others, right? And when I bring the value that everyone brings, right? The cheerful, the doers, the planners, the people with their heads in the clouds and think that better is possible and are eternal optimists like myself. What does that shared impact across us look like? And so I think that has been the change that I wish to see and helps me identify who I need to link with to make that happen in those ways. And I believe inherently that the importance of being fair and just, right? And how do we build a more fair and just society that everyone should have the opportunity to reach their most full, to be their most full and complete selves, and eliminating the barriers that may prohibit that from happening. And so that has been I feel like my life's work around how to make a community impact and, understanding that I spend so much time in my career, right? We all do as professionals. How do I channel my life's mission into really important work that fortunately I get paid to do, right? And so I think that has been the guiding principle for how I choose to engage in community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for what you do. Yeah. I think that it is very apparent, at least to me, who I've known you for several years now, why you're doing what you do. And you're very good at it. But remind us before we jump to the next question, how long you've been with United Way.
Yeah, 7 years. So I have been at the organization for 7 years in a variety of different ways. And I will say I was part of United Way even before I started working because I supported the campaign. I was a campaign coordinator in the organization I was working with because I said, gosh, how do we build this collective power around the community and supporting United Way in that way as a volunteer before I started working there. So 7 years professionally in a variety of different roles. One, working directly with the organizations that we support and invest in, and then looking at more deeply a few years spent around our community engagement work. How do we make sure that we are connected to community, learning from community, understanding our impact as an organization, and furthering that impact. And then most recently in the vice president role of our community impact work.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. What are you seeing right now at United Way, both within your staff, so within young professional staff, and within the young professional group that I know you all have? What are you seeing about the conversations young professionals are having and about them getting involved?
A few key things that I'm saying. So we have a lot of conversation internally around social capital. And one of the things that, United Way is aiming to do is advance economic mobility in this community. And we know that if you are born in poverty in this community, it's extremely difficult to get out of poverty for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Systemic challenges, community challenges, all of that plays a role. What we also know as a key indicator of moving out of poverty is building social capital, right? And I say it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And there are two forms of social capital that we kind of talk about. Bridging social capital, how do you connect with others to move up? Yep. And then bonding social capital. How do you connect with peers, colleagues? And so as I think about social capital, it doesn't, I'm going to pause. As I think of social capital, one of the things that we know is that it's important for everyone, right? Not just those individuals in poverty, but everyone needs that kind of need for mentorship, coaching, guidance, insight. Yeah. And so we see that same need for our young professionals and same interest in how do we build social capital, primarily bridging social capital, right? How do I connect with others to help move me forward across networks that I may not be familiar with, right? And so see that a lot with our young professionals. An example of kind of some efforts that we have going in that space is every year we do the Great Conversation. And so we connect young professionals who are interested in serving their community, interested in learning more about their community, having conversation with them over dinner with some of our community's top leaders, right? And to help them, again, create that bridging social capital to be in spaces and with individuals that at this point in their career, they may not be as exposed to. So we see that with a key trend, and I wouldn't say a trend, just a key staple in how we want to further young professionals and create spaces for them. Another example is that we see young professionals who often want to get engaged, but really don't know that first step, right? Don't know what they should do first, who they should reach out to first, right? How to kind of get their feet in the door around getting engaged. So a few things that we have seen some success in is, for instance, our That's My Greenville initiative, where we are really working to help young professionals be a lot more informed about their community, right? Like, what are the odds of moving out of poverty in our community? Why is that such a challenge? Understanding the dynamics at play around education and financial stability that we focus in our efforts on, what it takes to build a more vibrant and equitable community. That is where we spend a lot of energy and resources in a program, right? Helping young professionals be more educated about the community that they live in, so then they can decide what they're most interested in and where they feel like they can lend the most value. And we see young professionals who are interested in, saying, I want to serve on a board. I want to really, truly support nonprofits in a leadership capacity. And if anyone's ever served on a board, it is not oftentimes lollipops and roses, right? Yeah. And so there are some key things that young professionals need to know as they are preparing for board service and to serve organizations and nonprofits in the most effective way as a volunteer.
And y'all have a really great program for that.
So we have a program partnering with the Chamber and United Way, and the Greenville Chamber and United Way, to really put the tools in the tool belt of young professionals who want to serve on board. So they're learning things like risk management, best practices around finances, governance, right? And so those are key elements as young professionals wish to, engage in a community, but also serve in more of a leadership role.
Right. And I think those are such wonderful services that you offer. And that goes to my next question, which is, what can companies be doing better right now to help their young professionals make more of an impact? Because research shows that young professionals today are choosing to work at companies that have the opportunity to make an impact on their community. So what can companies do?
Yeah, we've seen some success with our corporate partners who have business resource groups, right? So really intentional kind of cohorts of groups to help employees engage in meaningful but really specific ways, right? So that could be a women's network, a young professionals group, a group around racial or ethnic lines, like a affinity group. And that's where we've seen success for companies to create opportunities to have their young professionals engaged in ways that are more tailored versus kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. And I think having a clear CSR, corporate social responsibility.
And tell people a little bit about that, because I know not everybody has that.
Exactly. Not everyone has it, right? And some companies have started to take that step of, as a company, here's how we care about community. And oftentimes, right, align with the work that they do, right? And so whether it's tech, they may be aligned to more science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEAM programming for youth, right? But really providing a clear direction for that organization to engage in community. And I think that helps create an environment and a culture where people feel, whether they're a young professional or not, that they can really step into that space and have the support of their company behind them.
Yeah.
So we've seen success around that. And then lastly, I say making space, right, for your employees to get engaged. And that has looked a variety of ways, even internally at United Way. We have things like a weekly Meals on Wheels route that our staff members can sign up for and better understand this community and serve in a way, right? Another example is just volunteer hours as part of working hours. So maybe it's 2 or 3 hours a week that you say, gosh, here's an opportunity for you to meaningfully engage in your community during work hours. And again, to create that space, that opportunity, is the key culture builder too, is where we've seen success.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I had no doubt that United Way was doing a lot already, but I think these are great tips for other companies to really get engaged. And one other point I wanted to mention, we had talked about social and economic mobility earlier. And that is something that young professionals have just had unlimited access to in the last decade, right? And growing up, it's been so much more part of our day-to-day conversations than any other generation before, which I think is good, because we are now seeing young professionals are almost demanding it. We expect it. Demanding is probably not the right word. We're expecting it to be a part of our corporations, our businesses. And so I think my hope is that businesses listening to this right now and leaders will apply what you just said if they're not already doing it. They're easy steps to take. Offer volunteer hours. Offer them to go spend a day at an organization. Get them on the Propel program and just create space. I love that. Make space. It's wonderful. As we wrap things up, because I always feel like we could, be talking for an afternoon, but as we're wrapping up, tell us, what role does community service, volunteer opportunities, and just making a difference play in engaging and retaining young professionals, in your professional opinion?
I think of, it as an anchor. It helps anchor young professionals in the community in which they are living and working and playing, right? And not just in a professional sense, right? And I think especially in a community like Greenville that is growing and a lot of industry coming in, there's a bit more of the opportunity for it to be a bit more transient, right? So people are coming in for a role. When that role ends, they may be leaving that community, right? And I think that's true for a lot of communities across the country. Having young professionals engage in their community in addition to their professional role helps anchor them, right? It helps them kind of find their own space and place and a sense of belonging that I think could help retain young professionals as well by really providing that anchor and giving them additional exposure and experiences. And again, that social capital and those relationships is really important in helping young professionals really retain. And I think community engagement has opportunity or a role in that too. Yeah, absolutely. I think just having exposure to be better humans, better people outside of the office. So thank you for sharing all of this. Like I said, I think we could have been here for hours talking about this topic, but I appreciate you being on the show and just happy to reconnect again. Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much, Camber. Thank you again for joining us on The Great Retention with Camber Parker. Before you go, remember this: young professionals make up nearly half of the workforce today and are expected to jump at a rapid pace in this next decade. What will you do as the business leaders of today help them become the next great leaders we need for the future?
Join us next time for more information on how to recruit and retain young professionals. And if you enjoyed this episode, which I hope you did, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps others know where to find episodes about this topic. And don't forget to share with your coworkers, most importantly. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.